Welcome back. William Jordan is here today of William Jordan Investments. And nice to have you.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And we kind of came up with a topic together that I think is kind of relevant. There are a lot of people that live in this community that are still in maybe their late 50s, early 60s. They have not yet retired. And they've been working for years. They may not work in an occupation like many nowadays that have a pension.
Right.
So they may have a small 401k, you know, they've been paying for college for the kids and all things like that. As we all know, nowadays we have, our generation has kids later in life.
Right.
So they may not have a lot put away to invest, but they know, they look at the money and say, I want to make this grow, I need to make it grow, but yet I'm going to be depending on this money I have.
Yeah,
it's a hard solution, isn't it?
It is. Well, especially with 2008 and 2009 having hurt many people so badly who were on track to retire maybe now, it really creates the question of almost one extreme or the other, where many folks are thinking, do I need to become really aggressive with my investments so that I can make up for lost time? Or the extreme opposite of, I can't afford to take any risk because I can't lose what I have. And, and is often the case, you know, the true answer or the best path is probably not on either extreme. It's finding some type of a middle ground. And it means it's much more critical to really come up with a plan, and for that plan to consider all of the assets and all of the moving pieces for someone versus just an abstract, I'm going to take my chips and push them in the middle of the table.
Right.
So I encourage folks to really start to think about what does retirement look like to them, and what does that ideal lifestyle look to them. In many cases, we can come up with some modification of that. Maybe it's not working quite as much. Maybe it's just starting to slow down a little bit, but allowing them to do some work while they're in retirement. The ability to have even a little bit of income coming in can really make a big difference for how much someone might need to draw off of their investments. And so that's something that's well worth considering if it's important to them to maybe be able to get out of the current job earlier.
Yeah, I know that I think you've talked about this as other investment guys I've heard on the radio and things like that. And it's about, you look at your Social Security, and as we know, you can take early Social Security at age 62 and a half, whatever it is, and or you can wait till all the way to about 70 and a half. Now, we have had, in the past, we've had our Social Security guy on who's done a wonderful show. He's now retired.
Nice.
And he was able to give a formula saying that if you took early retirement, early funds, I should say, that it tops out at about 77, where you break even. And he goes, well, how long are you going to live? You don't know. But is that something you look at?
Sure.
Tell me about that formula there that may or may not work for people.
Sure. Well, and that's one of those areas where the need for a plan that's detailed and really looks at every single area becomes very critical, because even making a small improvement in something such as Social Security, when you multiply that with other improvements in all of the other areas you can affect with a good plan, could make the difference between a retirement at 65 and 70, or plus or minus a few years in there without question. So the challenge is there is no one-size-fits-all formula for just saying, here's what you should do with your Social Security. Is it a married couple? Is it a single individual? If it's a married couple, is one going to qualify for a much higher Social Security benefit than the other, or are they both going to be fairly similar? Sometimes you can file yours and suspend it while your spouse starts receiving benefits, and sometimes it's better for you to just wait all the way until 70. So it's hard to just say, here's what to do. But there's definitely a thought process of, when would you like to have the money? And most people would prefer the bird in the hand versus the two in the bush. And so I think the tendency might be to take that Social Security a little bit earlier. It factors in also to, what are you doing from a work standpoint? If you're working and generating income, now we've got to consider the question of, am I going to be paying tax on my Social Security?
Exactly.
Now I've just lowered the net benefit I'm getting, versus if I did defer it, might I be in a situation where I'll collect more and I won't pay as much in tax? And so the timing of when to take income, we refer to it in our business as income planning or distribution planning. For so many years, most of the focus of the asset management, wealth management world was building assets and growing assets and protecting assets, and that's an important part. But planning distributions and planning income, it might be a scenario where you take income from your retirement accounts, your 401ks, or any other accounts. Maybe you take that from 62 to 65, or even from 62 to 70, planning to significantly use those assets, knowing that you're going to defer the Social Security and not take that until 70, but now you'll have a much larger amount of income coming in. So shifting the when and the why, it's the right question that people need to ask, and there are a lot of follow-up questions that need to be understood for their situation.
Yeah, and that's something that, if somebody sits down with you, you're going to look at. Everyone is different.
Absolutely. I had a great chance to meet with a wonderful gal recently. She's 70, and she came in the office just yesterday to say, can I retire now? And it was so interesting to look at the way she had her investment structured versus the way to optimize that. When she walked in, just taking a quick look at it, I would have said, no, you really can't retire now. But after we talked through how to sync everything up and really maximize the type of things we're talking about here, unequivocally, it was clear that she could retire right away.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how often I see scenarios where people have thought I couldn't possibly retire, and they come in and we figure out that they might have even been able to do it 2, 3, 4 years ago. And that's so frustrating because I feel like they've missed out on some of that opportunity that they might have enjoyed.
Yeah, and in many cases, people that reach that age, they may choose to continue working at just some fun job, but it may only bring in a few $100 or $1,000 a month, but that could make a huge difference, and yet they're only working, a few hours a week.
Yeah, when you're playing catch up, even that little amount of money, it doesn't seem like, obviously $1,000 is $1,000. If somebody handed me $1,000, I'm going to take it. So $1,000 is worth $1,000, but many times we feel like, well, that's not going to make enough of a difference. But when you put together the little pieces, the assets and how you have those invested, it's definitely a time that I caution people on the investment side, don't get too carried away. Many people they'll look at the stock market right now and think, well, we had a fantastic year last year. It's doing pretty good so far this year. I really need to push more into the stock market because I need to get caught up. And I think it becomes even more important to protect principal.
Right.
Because at a temporary decline, you're much more in the position of, I can't afford to lose any money, so you push it into something that's a little too aggressive, it starts to move the wrong direction, and you pull back out. And I've seen that seesaw back and forth in and out of investments at exactly the wrong times. So we might need to consider, I would stress considering less traditional assets. We've talked about real estate and trust deeds and things of that nature. Normally, we've talked about annuities, and normally I'm a fan of certain annuities. Now's probably not the ideal time for that, but how do we optimize each individual component and make sure that they're working together, like your point about the Social Security, and then my point about the other assets and the distributions. Many times the wealth manager is saying, no, don't touch the money I'm managing. And sometimes I'm in the position of saying, let's spend this money now because we know where the money is going to come from down the road. And then looking at the house, are you in the right house? Might you be downsizing? Do you have a mortgage? Should you refinance? Should you pay it off? Or should you consider a reverse mortgage? I'm throwing out the questions that need to be asked. And the good news is there are answers for those questions, but they can vary from person to person.
Yeah, and I can see where, for the average person, that's very confusing, where they need someone like you, because you have all the tools there, you have all the ingredients, and you're the one that comes up with that recipe that fits each individual. But you know where to pull from better than just the person walking in. They hear stuff on the radio and see it on TV, and they're like, that sounds good, that doesn't. Well, maybe or maybe not.
And the reason really is just simply because since I do that all day, every day, I've seen this person's situation or similar situations hundreds of times, whereas it's the first time they're going through it. I've often said, once you've gone through your Social Security process and decided what to take and actually made your election, you've become a bit of an expert in that whole thing.
Yeah.
And now you're ready to do it the right way, but you've already made your decisions. It's like sending your kids to college, planning your retirement, taking Social Security, all of these massive financial decisions that we get to make one time, and then we'll learn from that. I learn from all of the clients that I have so I can pass that knowledge on to other clients, and that's where we can deliver great value for them.
Yeah. It's great. And one thing that you've learned very well is moving from one building to another. Are you all unpacked? Are you?
Well, yeah, we're all unpacked.
Okay.
Everything is good.
All right.
Here we're right at the corner of Lake Forest and the 5 freeway, so very easy for people to find us. And I've only been in 3 buildings in the last 15 years, so
That's good.
This is the third
That's
one,
good.
and we'll be here for at least the next decade, so not going anywhere.
All right, very good. I want to make sure that people who have your number, 916-8000, still the same
Yep.
number.
Same numbers, everybody can reach us easily.
And then you can see your email on the screen there. And if somebody wants to email you, you welcome questions and
Absolutely,
things like
especially
that.
for folks in the village.
Yeah.
I mean, we're here because we'd like to add value and contribute to the well-being of the entire village here, even if they're not directly working with us. I always encourage somebody, if they've got a quick question, shoot us a question. If we can answer it simply, we'll answer it. Sometimes, like our discussion today,
Right.
it's just too complicated or it's inappropriate for us to throw out an answer without knowing the whole situation, but we'll respond to them either way.
All right, there's another look at your building that you're in, and it's great to have you on. Good to see you. Good topic, good conversation. And again, if you have those same kind of questions, give William a call, because as you can see, it's very individualized. There's no one answer for everyone, and all the people he has worked with and helped, he can pull from all that knowledge, and I appreciate you being on.
It's our pleasure.
Take care.
Thank
We'll be
you.
back in just a moment.
For 44 years, I was the face of Laguna Woods Television. I interviewed many people on the subject of retirement and investing, but when it was time for me to retire, the only person I called was William Jordan at William Jordan Capital. On the many occasions I interviewed William Jordan, I always appreciated his focus on educating us about safe ways to earn a good rate of interest on our money. If you are considering retirement and want to earn more interest on your safe money, do what I did. Call William Jordan Capital. I'm glad I did.